I'm excited to be here today with Alicia Taverner, talking about her journey to successful private practice and what that's looked like for her and how that has developed over the years. So we're going to do a little bit of like a mini depth case study today to help, educate and inspire you, those of you that are listening. So do you want to start, Alicia, by sharing your name, your website, and your specialty?
Sure. So my name's Alicia Taverner. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. My website is ranchocounseling.com. I'm in Rancho Cucamonga, California, and I specialize in working with couples, specifically with infidelity.
Awesome. And when did you open up your practice? What year?
So that's always kind of hard for me because I'm number one terrible with like dates and times. But so right after I got licensed, which would be 2011, 10.
Okay. I did this game where I'm like, I finished my I transferred to my bachelor's at 2001, and then 2003, and then 2005 I was done with, like, I totally have like a
so, yeah, everything goes by school year, not regular calendar year in my brain, just because we're so programmed to do that, for so many years. But yeah, I graduated from a master's program in 2007, and it took me 4 years to get all my hours and do my testing and stuff and get licensed. So that puts me around 2010-ish.
Okay, perfect.
And so at that point, I was working for an agency. I was actually running a program for foster and probation youth, a mentoring program. And before that, I had been working for the county of Riverside, which was just like soul sucking. So I took a pay cut to move to this agency job because it was program development. So it was a brand new program that had never been done before. It was funded through the county of San Bernardino. And I learned so much there that I got to apply into like working in private practice, right? Because I had to be creative. We created a whole curriculum for foster youth. And so it was a really amazing program. We would pair up foster youth with former foster youth, and then they would become their mentors. And so there was teaching components for the mentors and for the youth. So we had to design like this entire program, which was like a huge undertaking, but it was so fun. Because we wanted the program to be fun. Like, of course, the county, had all of these stipulations and things that we needed to teach the youth and the mentors, like just to be better professionals, and then the youth, obviously, to be successful in life. But I just did so much, like with marketing the program, making calls to people in order to like network, and all of those things like really translated into the private practice realm, which was super helpful. And I kind of knew that like going in, like this is not going to be my forever job. Like my dream was always to have a private practice. So I was just kind of doing that in order to get the experience that I needed to move forward. So I did that for, I think I was there for 4 years. But during that time, I had my practice on the side, which was basically just me like renting out office space from another therapist in the area. I'd go to work at my agency job, and then I'd come to the office and I'd see like 1 or 2 clients in the evenings, a couple nights a week. So that's how it started, very, very small. And when I had no idea like what I was doing, I remember I made like a website on like GoDaddy, and it was so terrible. Nobody could find the website.
How'd you get your first few clients? How'd they find you with your crappy website that no one could find?
I think they found me on Psychology Today. So that was like one of the things that I invested in was the Psychology Today listing. But I knew that I didn't want to take insurance. But then I started listening to, the Zinni Me, like the free trainings that you guys would do.
Mm-hmm.
So it really started me thinking about like a niche, and I'm trying to remember like way back when, like those early days. I think that's when I heard about simple practice. So I started, it's so funny because I still have like all of these files from way back then, you know, because we got to keep them for life, right?
I mean, just for 7 years after the person turns 18, and unless they come back to you, and then, yeah, exactly.
Like for life. So, and so I have like this file bin of like, and I'm just like, oh, like I just despise it, right? Because transitioning to like the electronic health record was so much better.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember like learning about niche, fee setting back then. So just like really basic.
Yeah. Well,
Really,
and it
really.
sounds like though that you listened to the trainings, but you started implementing the free trainings, like
Yes.
actually like making changes,
Yeah.
which a lot of people feel like, well, it's a free training, like that's interesting, but what did you notice change and shift just by doing the basic things from the free trainings?
So much. I mean, like when you start, nobody tells you what to do. And I remember like I went to Pepperdine for my graduate program, and then Casey Truffaut came to speak there. And so she talked about just like making money from private practice and how to be a wealthy therapist was like her book way back then. And so I knew it was possible. I just didn't know how to get there. But I also didn't have a ton of time to dedicate because I was working full time, and then doing like the private practice. And then I think just like word of mouth. I don't even know like where my referrals came from back then, to be honest. It must have been mostly like Psychology Today, because my website was such crap.
And then when did you enroll in boot camp and why?
So I ended up, let's see, after about 3 years when I was working for the agency, I got pregnant with my son. And then I had a baby. And I remember being on maternity leave and just
January of 2015. I just Googled it to see when you enrolled.
Yeah. So he was born in 2014. So yeah, of September. So that makes sense. Because I remember thinking about going back to work, and I just thought like, I'm gonna die. Like I cannot be without my son. And then I had a lot of like postpartum issues like OCD and anxiety that I didn't know about, that kind of went undiagnosed for a while. And I just thought like, I guess you just kind of go crazy after you have a baby, right? Like I guess like
yeah, like it's just,
yeah, I guess we just get really paranoid and worried that, things are going to happen to him, which yes, we do, of course, but like it was to the extreme. So anyways, I ended up then like I had a baby and I was doing private practice on the side and working a full-time job, and it was just like, when am I going to see my child? So at that point, actually, the program that I was working for, they weren't going to renew the contract. So it was like $1 million program, and we knew that it was like time limited. So I was like, okay, this is my out. This is perfect. At that point, I think I tried to like negotiate doing like some like school counseling or something like that. But it was a no-go, and I was like, okay, fine, then just lay me off. And so I was excited about that, and it came like at the right time, and that's when I enrolled in boot camp, because I knew like I needed to like get a fire lit under my butt so that I could be successful in my practice. So that's kind of when I started boot camp, was after I had gotten laid off. So I was home with a baby and building a practice very early on.
And that was 4 years ago, right?
Yeah.
And you said you kind of moved in. How many clients do you think, I know this is hard to remember, do you think that you had back then when you started?
Like 5 to 7 clients per
Okay,
week
cool.
when I first started.
And do you remember what your fee was when you very first started?
Yeah, 120.
Okay. And what does your practice look like today?
So, like, for example, this week I have 19 clients that I'm seeing this week that I've, in the middle of the week right now. We're at Wednesday, so I've got, I think 6 clients tomorrow, but that's like on the high end. Typically, so anywhere between like 12 and 19. So because I do discernment counseling, and so that's really short term. It's only 1 to 5 sessions, and so this week I just had like a high volume of calls for that. So I have like 3 discernment sessions this week, and those are like an hour and a half or 2-hour sessions. So it kind of bumps up the number, but I like to stay around like 14 a week. That's like full for me. And I hired a clinician over the summer. And she's got, I think, like 7 clients now.
Wow. So you transitioned into a group practice.
Yes. It's come a long way.
It's come a long way. You've moved in from this is something on the side to something you're building to wow, you have a group practice today with one of your clinicians is partway full and private pay in clear niche and people reaching out to you, too many people, more people than you'd actually like to be seeing.
And I have a really good website.
That's awesome.
That I created thanks to boot camp and your videos. And like, I forget which one that you had recommended it. Maybe it was like a Skillshare or one of those courses. So I did that and I built my Squarespace website, and it's gone through, many iterations. But now when people go on my website, they're like, wow, who did your website? I'm like, I did.
Right. It's such a magical thing too, because when you get that skill set, and not everybody wants to do it, I get it, but when you can kind of like have enough knowledge to know it's sort of like Microsoft Word, at the basic level of it, that you can like move and tweak things. And then if you want to get a designer to do something, you can do that. But most therapists find they don't actually need that. Like it's just about picking some fonts and changing out the wording. Like it doesn't have to be big.
Yeah, once you learn how to do it. Because I remember initially when I had my crappy website, I had a friend who was like a graphic designer, but it was such a headache to like email and like, can you just change this? Like having full control over my website has been just so simple and easy. Because I'm like, oh, let's offer, a group. I'm just going to kind of add that to my website, or, just different things that you want to change. It makes it so much easier.
Oh, that's fantastic.
But I have to say, because I know that people are going to wonder, like, well, how did you do that financially, right? Like, because everyone wants to know, like, how you take the leap and just dive in. So I was fortunate that I got laid off, right? So I was getting unemployment, which is not a lot of money, but it's something to supplement that. And so that's kind of when I saw that opportunity of like, okay, now it's like sink or swim. I'm going to get this unemployment. I don't remember how long I got it for. But then I ended up getting a contract job where I would see, like, just do psych evaluations at skilled nursing facilities and psych hospitals. And so that paid like per diem, per like case, and it paid really well. And so for a while I was doing that and like building the practice. And then they lost their contract. And I had another baby in all of the midst of this. So then I had my daughter, and I remember just thinking, okay, well, I'll just, and I think by then my caseload was pretty full because I was ready to give up the contract position anyways, and then they lost their contract, and I was like, okay, so that works out perfectly. And I went on maternity leave. So then that was another thing, right? Is like I had to navigate like maternity leave, because before I was working for an employer and they paid my maternity leave. But like, so I was saving money, and I had enough to be off for like 2 months after she was born.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, and then I will just gradually go back, right? Like the
Mm-hmm.
calls will start to trickle in because I had stopped taking new clients. And that's kind of
Mm-hmm.
like a weird thing too. When people call you and you're like, yeah, but I'm going on maternity leave and I didn't have a clinician or anybody to take over. I mean, I had like therapist friends and people that I could refer to.
Yeah.
But it just blew up.
Mm.
So I thought I was gonna come back slowly, and like it just felt like the minute I decided I was gonna come back, I was like inundated with calls, but to be honest, it was like all of the groundwork that I had laid
You
before
had
that.
gone through and done boot camp. You had put together this foundation of your website, your marketing, charging the right fee, figuring out the policies, like what to do on your phone, like everything start to finish. And it really does make such a difference in being able to like turn on and off that
Mm-hmm.
flow of referrals and go, oh gosh, like it's here. And now it's
Mm-hmm.
something that you don't have to worry about a contract. It's
Yes.
not turned on and off by like, oh, that didn't get signed off or this bureaucracy decided it doesn't matter. Like, it's just like, do people need me? Yes, they do.
Mm-hmm.
And I can provide them a service.
Exactly. And so what's really interesting is like, when I talk to colleagues or people who are still working either for like, the healthcare systems or in agencies and stuff like that, the one thing that I always tell them is like, it seems like it is something that you can rely on, right? Like we get our health insurance, we have set hours and a salary, and that's nice. But guess what? 4 times I've worked for a place that's lost their contract. So pretty much every agency, that I've worked for, like something happens with the funding and it's through no fault of mine.
Yeah.
That's not under my control.
Nope.
But what I can control is me and my practice and what I do. And so it's been really so amazing to just build a life around my work rather than the opposite, right? Like build your
business to fit your life instead of fit your life around the work.
Yes, exactly. Like the arbitrary like 9 to 5 doesn't exist anymore, because I mean, if you talk to anybody who works in an agency, I mean, unless you're doing like Medi-Cal and you're seeing like 1 million clients a week, which is just like soul crushing and that sort of thing. But like working for an agency, I mean, like you're not working 9 to 5, like get real. Half the time you're like messing around and, talking to colleagues or whatever, like milking it. And so now like I get to use that time to spend with my kids.
Or just meditate or journal or create like what's the next iteration or vision of my business, like all
take
of those
yoga
different
classes,
yes.
be involved at my kids' school, like volunteering. And it's funny because I had a client recently and she was a doctor and her whole thing, like her goal in life, she's like, my goal in life is to just be at 10 a.m. yoga on a Wednesday. Like, who the hell has that job that they get to be at yoga at 10 a.m.? Because number one, you have to have money to be able to pay to go to a nice yoga studio. And number two, who's not working? And I like kind of raise my hand like, well, me. Like, I go to yoga at 10 a.m. on Wednesdays. Yeah, so just building this business around my life.
Yeah.
And
it's a
having
beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to like thank you so much for coming and sharing that little bit of your story. I think there's so much that people can get inspired about that transition. I know there's a lot of people like right now in 2019, they're even like worried about like future recessions and what does that mean for private practice and all those things. And I know I built a business during the recession. I felt like my income was actually better during the recession than my friends who were still at the county because they were getting I forget what it's called, where they like force you to take time off.
Furloughs.
Furloughed and things like that. And they were getting their programs cut at left and right and losing benefits. And I was like, I just work on my marketing. Like that's all I need to do. And I get to have I'm in control of that, and it's not arbitrary, and I love it.
Yeah. So I planted those seeds for 2 years, went on maternity leave, and came back to like a full practice. And then I did nothing. I won't say nothing because Kelly will kick me in the butt because she says that I always say that. But I stopped blogging. I stopped doing like a bunch of marketing stuff for the past 2 years because I had a newborn and a baby, and now she's 2, and I'm just now getting back to it. But still, like, I've been able to have a consistent income for the past 2 years, a 6-figure income, which is nice.
Yeah, it's nice.
It's nice.
Right? And one that like really works around your life, like is beautiful. What advice would you have to someone who's trying to figure out, they're in the same kind of position, they're trying to figure out what to do, like in terms of like even enrolling in boot camp? Like, is it something, what's your advice to people who are trying to figure out private practice and what to do with that?
I say that you don't need 1 million clients. You only need, I don't know, do the math, 10, 12, 15, wherever you want to be. And there's way more people that need help than the amount that you can serve is just about reaching them. And that's, I think, one of the most valuable things that I've learned from boot camp, because it's easy to be really pessimistic and worrisome and anxious. And I am a risk taker. I'll throw that out there. But I also did the work. And if you do the work, like, it's totally possible. I'm not smarter than anybody else, you know, I'm not like genius level. I just work hard. And so anybody can do it.
Love it, love it, love it. Check her out at ranchocounseling.com, right? Yep. Got it right.
And you can follow me on Facebook or Instagram, the same, Rancho Counseling.
All the things. Again, thank you so much for taking time out of your day and your Wednesday when you went and had yoga this morning at 10 a.m. Maybe? Yeah. Yes, that's awesome. I missed 10 a.m. yoga this morning because I was doing these video interviews and I was like, it'll be all right. All right. Talk to you soon, girl.
All right. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome.